I feel so lucky to have 2 beehives full of beautiful, healthy bees, and as a chef, one of the most exciting times each year is when, once I'm sure they have more than enough, I get to take a little of their honey to use on my menu and share with my guests, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So if you're new to my channel, I'm a plant-based chef and I cook a tasting menu for just 8 guests a night from a converted space that me and my partner live above. And my 2 beehives are just outside in the garden, so close by actually that on a warm day, the guests can watch the bees coming and going from the dining room. I'm going to introduce you to my bees and share the exciting process of harvesting some honey, and then show you how I use that on my menu. One of the reasons that I'm so fascinated with honey is because it's so unique to the place that it comes from. It's intertwined with what's in flower and what the climate's like, and it gives you a real snapshot of a place and time and flavour. Keeping bees really opened my eyes to small, almost imperceptible changes throughout the seasons that I certainly wasn't noticing before. A certain plant coming into flower, changes in the temperature and to the length of days, all became more and more obvious to me and more important because of how they affected the bees. The way that I cook is so small scale that it allows me to have a very personal relationship with my ingredients and dishes and express ideas through the food very directly to my guests. I really want to make everything I can in-house, so I suppose it was only a matter of time before I'd become interested in keeping my own bees. It allows me to share something really unique about my location through the flavour of the honey and share my experience of keeping bees with my guests. I'd describe my beekeeping as very bee-centred. I'm looking after them and my main duty is to them and their health. I opted for the flow style system of hives because I think it allows you to extract honey with the least possible disturbance to the bees. Each of my beehives will contain between 30 and 40,000 bees, and the colonies are made up of mainly female worker bees who are all sisters, and then a very small number of male bees who contribute relatively little to the hive. Each hive has a queen who lays the eggs that will become new bees and releases pheromones that keep the bees working together well as a colony and keeps them calm and happy. I found our bees to be remarkably gentle. I can stand right by the hive with nothing special on and the bees will just buzz around me. They've got no desire to harm you unless they feel like they're in danger. The structures that the bees make from natural wax are honestly incredible. They're such precise shapes and perfectly designed to hold the honey via surface tension. Watching them build these is magical. There's such a unique intelligence at work, and the way that they coordinate and communicate is fascinating. As the bees make their honey, they manage its water content, and once it drops to 18%, they cap the honey and it can then keep more or less indefinitely. My aim is to make the perfect possible environment for the bees, so much so that they make more honey than they can possibly ever use, and only then will I harvest some. The bees will generally travel about a mile from the hive to collect nectar and pollen, so the flavours in the honey are really unique in giving you a representation of that particular place. This week I was able to harvest 2 frames of honey out of 12 that the bees had filled, because I want to be really cautious about leaving them more than enough. But even just those 2 frames gave me 6 kilograms of honey. Under perfect conditions in a really good year, from just 2 hives I could have up to 36 kilograms of honey, in excess of what the bees themselves need, which is more than I would ever take, but it just gives you a sense of how incredibly industrious the bees are. That said, you really shouldn't get into beekeeping if your focus is on profit or on the honey. It would be the most expensive honey that you've ever had once you think about the money you've spent on the hives and keeping the bees healthy, and your focus really should be on the health of the animals, and the honey is a bonus if everything goes perfectly. Of course, there are different types of beekeeping and different types of hives, but I feel really quite emotionally attached to our bees, and I know I want to make sure that I'm always putting their welfare first. I think overall the sort of beekeeping I'm doing really helps the bees and helps to support bee populations that really struggle in the wild. And I don't do anything to harm the bees, we don't clip the queen's wings or anything like that. The bees live a sort of luxury version of their natural life. I think that one of the best things that you can do for bees is to buy honey from small scale, local, ethical producers. It's good for the environment, it's good for the bees, and you'll get a flavour that's really unique to where you are. Obviously nothing's black and white, and I know that some vegans wouldn't eat honey at all, and I totally respect that position, but for me, I do use honey, and I think that having honey from my own hives gives me the most ethical and delicious honey possible. When it comes to actually harvesting honey from the hives, because I use the flow system, you can insert a key and turn it, and you can tap honey from an individual frame. No bees are killed or hurt during this process, and it's incredibly gentle on the colony. Another benefit of using this system is that bees fill up one frame of honey at a time, and by being able to extract individual frames, you can isolate the flavours from different parts of the year. Now I've got this beautiful honey from the garden, I'm going to show you how I use it on a dish on my menu. But first, there's one more seasonal element I want to touch on. As I record this in the summer, the fennel just outside my kitchen windows in flower, and I trim those flowers off and let them dry out and then tap the fennel pollen off them. And then I use that fennel pollen in this dish to add a really nice subtle sweet floral flavour. So the dish from the menu is a rich dark chocolate parfait with the fennel pollen and then topped with caramelised honey lace and drizzled with my honey from the garden. On the side, I serve a cold infused lavender granita, and you can see how I make that in my video on cold infusions. I'll link to that below. I serve the granita on the side and ask the guests to go back and forth between the two, so you get the rich complexity of the chocolate and the honey, and then the floral granita keeps on refreshing and resetting your palate. I'm going to do another video in the future where I go a bit more in depth about my hives and beekeeping. Obviously, beekeeping isn't for everyone, but even if you can try to buy local small scale honey rather than buying from supermarkets, that's a great way to support bees. Thanks very much for watching, and if you've enjoyed the video, please give me a like and hit subscribe. And I have a Patreon page if you'd like to see a bit more from me, some other videos, recipes, and early access booking to my tasting menu. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.